Well, hello, and thank you for coming to my session today. I'm Stephanie Craig, and I'm here to talk to you about UDL in higher education, or passing on the torch. As I said before, my name is Stephanie Craig, and I'm currently at Marietta College in Marietta, Ohio. It's located in the southeast corner of the state, right on the Ohio River. And Marietta City actually was the first settlement in the Northwest Territories. So there's a lot of history here. It's a beautiful area. So if you're ever in the area, you need to stop by and explore and visit the landmarks that we have here to offer. So I wanted to start off my session by sharing my journey with UDL because it's really shaped the way that I'm now an assistant professor and working with future teachers. I started off as an elementary teacher in 5th and 6th grade. I did that for about 9 years. I was in the classroom, and the first time I was exposed to UDL was having the framework introduced to me. And I will be honest, I struggled with how is this different than what I'm already doing? Because a lot of the suggestions that were made really did sort of point to things that I was already doing in the classroom. But I've always found that when I get interested in something, I can find myself going down many rabbit holes, trying to learn more about something. And that's how I was with the framework. I really wanted to learn why had the district that I worked at adopted this framework, and how was it different, and how was it going to affect my students any differently? With that being said, I did start reading a lot of materials and going to conferences and trainings and collaborating with other teachers. And then my education career sort of took a different turn. I decided to leave the classroom and become a coach and within the district that I was at teaching. And I was at two different elementary schools. All of the schools in the district had a halftime UDL facilitator. And in this role, I was privileged to work with two incredible staffs of teachers and administrators who were hungry to better themselves and to make sure that they were implementing the framework as best they could. So I was able to work with individual teachers who came to me and we would collaborate. I worked with teams of grade level teachers as we came together and would come up with plans, and I would help them, just supporting them and finding materials, finding different technology that would help them implement the guidelines and checkpoints, and then providing professional development to several teachers who, on their own time, by their own choice, would attend the professional development to learn more about the framework in itself and the guidelines and what the checkpoints mean and what does this look like. And I was a coach for 5 years. I loved doing that. I loved collaborating with teachers. I did an expert learner project with two teachers who taught 60 first, second, and third graders. And it was so incredibly rewarding to meet with students and teach them about the brain and our learning and being an expert learner and what that looks like, um, and implementing choice into different things that maybe they hadn't had choice before with how they showed their learning. So it was sort of unexpected, but an opportunity presented itself in 2016, and I decided to leave the district and go back to school full time. Um, Looking back, I probably don't know if I would have done that again because it was such an experience, very very hard but rewarding at the same time. So I'm a year out from my doctoral program, and what I find that's really interesting for me is being a student full time and realizing how incredibly important it is for any learner to have those principles of UDL implemented, regardless of the age or the level of education, and that making materials and content flexible and accessible is not about it doesn't cut back on the rigor of a program. It doesn't take away from anything. It actually supports students to get more out of a program. And I found myself at a point where I had to really advocate for myself due to some personal circumstances to get accommodations. And it really helped me to appreciate a district that I'd come from and how they valued the framework. And so when I began looking for a position in higher ed, I really wanted to make sure that I fit within any program that I started, that they really valued this framework and they really believed in inclusion. And it wasn't just a lot of talk, but they actually walked the walk. So after I graduated from my doctoral program, I came to Marietta College as an assistant professor in education. And it's a small liberal arts college. There's about 1,200 students who are enrolled, and the education department is growing by leaps and bounds, which is really exciting. So I want to stop here for just a moment and have you sort of think about your journey with Universal Design for Learning. Maybe it's just starting, maybe you're in the middle. I don't know that you ever actually get there. I don't know where there is, but just being reflective on how has your journey sort of colored your view of what you're doing, whether you're in K through 12 or in a higher education position. How has that really framed your thinking about instructing at that level? I like to use this graphic to sort of have students do a reflective piece on just thinking about where do I fit within this distribution of individuals across implementation of innovation. And I think it's applicable to anything that you're doing, whether it's implementing technology, whether it's adopting a new series in education, new practices. It really takes those individuals who are in the forefront as innovators to bring about change and lead the charge in that change. I'd like to think that I'm at least been in the early majority, if not the early adopters over the course of my educational career. But I find myself in a place where I really feel like I am an innovator. And I think that comes from, like I shared with you earlier, the journey that I've had with Universal Design for Learning in education. So I would ask you here, where are you? Where would you put yourself? And of course, we know as learners, there's so much variability. And I believe there's also variability as far as what context are we talking about? Maybe there's one context that you really do feel a little hesitant to be one of those innovators or early adopters, and you want to see how it works out. So we're going to talk about what this looks like and what our program at Marietta College has, the vision that we have and the direction that we're going. So at Marietta College, we have different levels, elementary, middle, high school, and then education studies. And some of the things that make Marietta special in my eyes is that we have an education seminar that new students or students coming in who have declared a major in education, they're in the first semester of their first year. And what's exciting about this class is that there is field experience with it. So they are out in the classrooms just a few weeks in to their first semester as college students. And by the end of the semester, they have put in 45 hours in the field, out in classrooms. And throughout the program, they're actually going to complete over 300 hours in the field. And what makes that exciting is that when I think back to my undergraduate experience, I didn't get out into classrooms until like my last 2 years of my program when I started methods classes. And at that point, you've invested a lot, and we want students to really have an idea going in with multiple experiences, with multiple age groups, within that range of students that they'll be licensed to teach, to really experience what that's like and be able to contemplate, is this really the way and direction that I want to go with my career? Another thing that we offer at Marietta College is a year-long internship. So in the senior year, students actually come back early, earlier than Marietta College classes begin, because they actually join in with their mentor teachers at our partnership schools and participate in the professional development that those teachers are involved in before school even starts. They are there for open houses. They are there to greet the students. Their fall semester internship is one full day a week, whereas they're on campus for other classes that are modules that we've developed for that stage of the process in the program. So what's so valuable about this is that students know the learners in the classroom, and when it comes springtime and there's not as much time that needs to take place with observations and so forth, and going in and learning students' names and getting to know them, which takes time, but it's already happened because they've been there from day one with the students. And then of course in the spring, they're out in the field the whole week, and it's really exciting for them. And another piece that we have actually that started before I came here to Marietta, but this spring is the first cohort of interns who are graduating, who will be dual or be able to be dual licensed. The SEED program is the Special Education Elementary Dual, and they will be able to teach pre-K through 5, and they can easily find a position as an intervention specialist and or a general education teacher. We hope that we can eventually stop seeing these separate, siloed kinds of education and just say, we are educators who are inclusive. And that's what we're producing in our program. Next spring, a year from now, we'll have our first mixed ed or middle childhood special education dual who will be licensed in grades 4 through 9 that are going to be graduating and going through. So it's a really exciting time for students who are coming into education. It's valuable because they're getting such a nice mix of classes and information and experiences. So with mixed ed, there are 2 different routes that students can take. There's the humanities, where they focus in on English, language arts, and social studies, or there's STEM, which they'll focus on actually at mixed ed, they have a double major in their content areas as well as education. So this is something that I'm so excited to be a part of. This is one huge reason that I came to Marietta College, because I felt like there's such value in this thinking and in this way of preparing our teachers, our future teachers, to be able and be equipped to reach the most learners that they possibly can in a classroom. We currently do not have a program for our AYA, or adolescent young adult license program, but we are working on it. It's under construction right now, and beginning next fall, we'll begin our professional development with teachers, where we will go through different trainings on the Universal Design for Learning framework, co-teaching, and really finding those teachers who are the innovators, who are the early adopters, and that want to be part of creating this new partnership with Marietta College. So I like using Noster's model for managing complex change because it's so relevant, regardless of whether you're in a school district, just a school building, or you're in any kind of organization where you want to really bring about change. So Noster and friends said that there's 5 skills or 5 components that really need to be in place and thoughtfully put in place for you to have success and for a change to actually be at the place where it's embedded in the environment and it's institutionalized. So it doesn't have to be thought of every time as I've got to do this. It's just part of the environment. So obviously, if you have all 5 of these elements in place, you're going to have success. Yes, it will take time, but when some of these elements are missing, it's when you start experiencing problems in having change take place. So the first thing we're going to look at is, what if you have your action plan that's missing? You just don't have an action plan. You have your vision, you have skills, there's incentives and resources. You're going to keep having false starts. So the change will keep just sort of spin its wheels in the starting stage and never move forward if you don't have an action plan. It's sort of like the saying that a goal without an action plan is just a dream. So you really need to make sure that you have one in place. So I want to share with you what we have in place, or what we are planning and our goals for this dual program and universal design for learning within our program at Marietta College. So we really want to weave universal design for learning and the instruction around the framework and build a foundational knowledge early on in the program. But we don't want to just have one class about UDL, because UDL is really a design thinking. And so we want to have it seen as a very cohesive piece that goes through the entire program. So some courses that we have started working on that, implementing or introducing the framework is the education seminar that I mentioned earlier that all freshmen take. It's really just looks at big ideas in education and different things that as an educator you need to be thinking about. Within that, we really try to make sure that students understand the concept of learner variability versus barriers, because in my experience with even working with veteran teachers, oftentimes the two are mixed up, and the actual variability of the learner is identified as what the barrier is in the environment. So we really try to make sure that they have a good grasp of that. The technology in the classroom, we're really trying to mold into a class that looks at the design and use of technology to further implement the framework, but also be effective in helping our instruction and support students in showing what they know. And so we have been talking about the TPAC model of technology integration, where you consider the content knowledge that you're wanting to teach and what's the appropriate pedagogy that needs to take place in order to get the content knowledge to the students. And then what technology piece really helps to complement the pedagogy. We want to pull the students away from thinking that technology is this event, and that it's really a tool, and it's a tool that needs to be thoughtfully planned and considered, whether it's assistive technology or instructional technology. As with diverse learners, we really focus on making sure that they understand that we're all different, that there's variability and diversity among learners, but we really want to bring in the piece of UDL that helps to make environments equitable for all students. And we have an instructional planning course, and that's sort of the heart of where we want to sort of rest UDL and how to use the framework in designing units. And how do you identify barriers up front using the framework and considering the variability in your classroom and the needs that your students have. We currently have one transition class that our dual program students take. It covers birth to adulthood, but beginning next fall, we're going to be actually creating two courses. One is going to cover birth to middle, and we'll have the seed or the elementary dual program students attend. And then the other is going to concentrate on middle school to adulthood and the transitioning that needs to happen both legally through the IEP planning process and just overall in the seed transition class. Their placement is going to be in a pre-K inclusive school where they are going to see students who have numerous disabilities who are in the classroom, in the general education classroom for pre-K students. So we're excited about this partnership with a new school in the area. And we're excited about having the focus really sort of narrowed in that helps all students sort of be able to relate and understand that transition is extremely important at all stages of development. And we want to be able to support that. And that's one reason that we decided to create the two classes out of the one. The senior year, we have modules that the students are part of. And during the morning part of the day, the interns are with different content and different professors who are teaching content methods. And I'm actually going to be co-teaching in 3 of those classes so that the students who are mixed ed, the students who are SEED, and the students who are AYA, even though they're not a dual program yet, they're going to have, as we've started to inject UDL into the program, we're starting with them and moving back towards further and further into the program with where are we going to teach this and so forth, and doing a lot of mapping with our instruction. So during this time then in the afternoon, I also am going to be co-teaching with another instructor on co-teaching. And that's one of the goals that we have when our students go out and they're doing their student teaching or their internship in the classroom, is that they are learning and they're practicing what they've learned about co-teaching in the classroom. And then we also have modules on high leverage practices and assessments and IEPs and I think that's it. So we really are trying to make sure that they are modeling, they're seeing us model the co-teaching and modeling how we use the framework as faculty in order to make sure that we're reaching all of them. Another thing that what's exciting about having a program that's newer is that you learn from things that you may have not thought of, or what you're seeing that's not happening the way you thought. And so you go back to the drawing board and you say, okay, what do we need to do? So student teaching is one of those things that it's really funny because we have this partnership with schools, and this is the first group who are actually going to be dual licensed. So they do need to have time with the intervention specialist. They do need to have time with the mentor teacher. And we had the perfect setup of those combinations or teams of teachers that really were doing push-in programs. But then COVID hit. And so students at the K-12 went to different cohorts, coming in one week, out the next. And so it really put a little bit of a wrench in the work, but we've sort of learned enough through this last semester with our interns that this model is sort of a little bit just not the right fit for this program. And we sort of feel like it's time to park that old model. One, because it's outdated. Student teaching has taken on different changes over the years in different places. There's research behind the co-teaching model with mentor teachers and the interns or student teachers. But one thing that we noticed is that the old traditional model of student teaching is not always a good model of inclusiveness. And if you don't have that mindset, if you don't have that practice in place, then it comes across as a little bit forced and disingenuous, because you have individuals who still are in the old mindset of one teacher with all these students, and they've got, and the students who have IEPs, they are taken care of by someone else, and so on. So we're trying to sort of update this model, because it's really a sink or swim kind of situation. And what's ironic is that we've been doing this for decades. And I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd want to go and have surgery with a surgeon who spent maybe a couple weeks observing another surgeon and maybe helping with the surgery. And then they're thrown into the operating room, and I'm their first patient. We're one of the only professions that actually does that. And so trying to change the way that we view that experience, as it's still, they're learning. They're still trying to, they being interns, trying to really gain experience and be able to spread their wings and try new things. And so we want to create a kind of experience that's going to help them do that. So we want to update this a little, and we've decided that we're going to pilot a paired placement next semester. And we're going to try this with one pair of seed interns and one pair of mixed ed interns. But one thing that we want to focus on is that it really breaks the old traditional sink or swim model. It's going to build in a co-teaching experience with the two interns doing a lot of the co-teaching together. We are going to build in those collaboration skills, which are very important. We know those are high leverage practices that teachers need to be practicing in the classroom and explicitly teaching their students and modeling it. And this is an opportunity for our interns to have that opportunity as well. The mentor teachers really sort of, their role changes to become more of a coach with the two interns. And while we are planning on each intern having their time to teach independently, they will teach, they will co-teach, as well as co-teaching with the intervention specialist, sorry. What research has shown us is that students are more likely to actually try new ideas if they are with a peer than if they're with a veteran teacher. Sometimes it's a matter of, I'll just defer to your expertise, and you may have a mentor teacher that is not one that would step back and allow that freedom of trying new things, and just having that confidence that you're working with someone who's in the same boat as you, and you can really collaborate and come up with some really innovative ideas. And then we know that all students really benefit from an inclusionary collaboration and a design that is meant to have as many students being reached and supported as possible. So what this actually will look like, and I alluded to it a moment ago, is that right now our program with the dual students are in the dual programs. There is one intern that is paired with one intervention specialist and one general education teacher. What we want to do is we want to pair two interns with one intervention specialist and one general education teacher. And for the reasons that I stated before, giving them more of an opportunity to collaborate, which is probably more of what they'll see in schools that are really have the philosophy of inclusion. And so a lot of push-in programs happening, not a lot of pull-out. So rather than a team of three or a very like separated team of the intervention specialist with an intern or the general ed teacher with an intern. You really have a team of 4. And so let's go back to Noster's model. So that's our action plan. But what if resources are missing? So that's something that we really have been thinking about, because as interns, new teachers to the field, there's a frustration with, I don't know what to use, or I don't know where to go to find out this information. So being very cognizant of what materials we're using, those provided by CAST, those by different authors who are very focused in the field on universal design for learning, instruction, and support. And we have also adopted the high leverage practices, as I mentioned before, as something that practices that are evidence-based. And we make sure that we go through and have students actually do some analysis of those practices and where do they fit within the framework, or what part of the research is backing the framework. Thank you to Dr. Louie Lord Nelson for her wonderful fun game of Go Fishing with UDL. Here we are in COVID. We were so lucky to go back last fall face-to-face. Lots of COVID rules in place, but we got out our latex gloves and we decided to play Go Fish. And this was a way to interact with the framework that was different, fun. It was a nice day outside. They got to go out and enjoy the weather as they were learning. So I really tried to model what I'm talking to them about, that there's different ways of learning and different ways of interacting with materials and instruction. So we've thought of the resources, and we want to move a lot of those resources up closer and earlier into the program, so that by the time they get to their internship, a lot of this, they have a really good foundational base of knowledge about universal design for learning. So we have an action plan, we've got the resources. What about incentives? If that's missing, you're going to have resistance. You're going to have students who just don't understand, and teachers as well, if at a district level you're adopting the framework. So one thing, and I'm not an advocate of teaching to any test or any assessment, but your goals should align with your assessment. And like many other institutions of higher learning, we use the EdTPA, which is the performance assessment piece that is used to help license our students in Ohio. And having the EdTPA, it is something that we look at very closely with. We have a template that is created that really has students looking at goals and how do you unpack the standards to create goals. How do you look for barriers in goals? Do the assessments align with the goals? What kind of assessments are you doing? What are the formative? What are the summative? And really trying to get them to think, going back to that goal, that really will determine the freedom that you have with choice with your assessments. And if you don't have the choice of assessments, then you need to be supporting and providing scaffolding for those students who struggle. If you are bound and determined to have them write something, especially at the elementary level, you want to make sure that there's supports in place for them as they show what they've learned. Another incentive, which I hope is even more incentivizing than the first, is the fact that we want our students to look at themselves as agents of change, that they are going out into the teaching world and having a background knowledge of a framework that will help them to be very strategic and intentional and effective educators. So we want our students to be up here with the innovators. We want them to be the early adopters. And we want them to go out in confidence in their first job and know that they have the tools in which to make a very flexible, inclusive, and accessible classroom for all students. So then we come to skills. If you have skills missing and you're trying to create a complex change or bring a complex change about, you're going to have anxiety. So what kind of skills do we want our students to have? We want them to understand that there is learner variability, that yes, we have students who will have disabilities, but we also talk a lot about the model of how we view disabilities, and that learner variability is really so internal to the student. It's their strengths, it's their abilities, and we want them to understand that there's variance across learners, but we also need them to understand that learners are not one-dimensional. They are multifaceted, and they can be struggling in one area and very strong in another, and it really has to do with context. And we really want them to also understand that barriers, if we're looking at the social model of disabilities, is in the environment. It's not within the learner, it's in the environment. And we want them to understand that they have the power to change the environment. And when they do that, they're actually supporting learners to grow and to actually learn. We want our students to understand that when a learner struggles, that is really an indication that there is a barrier that we have not addressed in our environment, whether it's our assessments, our goals, our instruction, or our materials, or the tasks that we're having students do. If they're struggling, there's a reason. And so, as I often say with behavior, it's a communication of something that they need. And we have to figure that out. And so knowing that we just statistically will have students in our classroom who struggle, whether they have an IEP or not. And even if they do have an IEP, they're not pulled out the whole day. And it's still their responsibility to make sure that their needs are being met at all times in the classroom. So another thing that we have that we want our students to leave Marietta with is the UDL Associate Level 1, and potentially down the road, the UDL Core Level 2 micro-credentials. Next fall, we are going to make this a piece that will be required for our seniors. But again, we want this to move up sooner into the program so that by the time they leave, they will have that opportunity to have the Core Level 2. And maybe if we have this program work in the way that we're planning, the Level 3 that's under construction right now as we speak could be a possibility for some of the students as well. But I think this would be a very a piece that would help them not only have the training within the courses at Marietta College, but also have that expertise through those individuals working with learning design and who've created these micro credentials. So that's something that, again, we're putting into place and trying to get planned as soon as we can. The last thing, if the last component, if it's missing, really causes confusion. And I'll take you back to at the beginning of the session when I was talking to you about how I was confused about why should I use this framework, you know, and it wasn't until I understood the why behind it, the brain research, and just knowing that we're so different as learners, and just understanding that piece was enough for me to have that vision. So what is our vision at Marietta College for our students and our program? Our vision probably aligns with many people's vision in their teacher prep programs. We want to develop a program that really empowers inclusive, design focused educators. We want our students, which we are proud to say we have 100% placement every year, and we want them to be able to really go out and have a choice in where they go. We want them to know that they are getting the best education they can in our program, and that we're competitive as far as looking at larger public institutions. So that is our vision. That is our goal. We have been working, and I say we, I've only been here a year, but I feel so much part of this program, even at this point in my career, just being here 1 year and just being embraced with ideas that I'm bringing and having the program be very fluid and changing and working with individuals who are very set on we need to do what's right for the students and their potential learners later on. So we want to make sure that they feel prepared to use the framework in their instruction, in their teaching positions, rather than just having a very basic knowledge and be able to lesson plan with it. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Do you want to pass on the torch, what you know about universal design for learning, to your students in your teacher prep programs? Maybe you're already doing that. Maybe you've been doing it for a while. And I think it would be very exciting to talk to people and have that conversation. And unfortunately, with this session being recorded, we don't have that opportunity, but I would love for you to reach out and chat with me, share your ideas, share what you're doing. You can reach me at slc003@marietta.edu. And I look forward to hopefully hearing from someone. I don't, you don't even have to be in the United States. I just think it would be incredible to talk to different educators, faculty members who are really, they share this vision. And I think we can learn so much from each other. So I really want to thank you for coming to my session today. Hopefully it was helpful for me to talk about what our plan and our hope is. And you never know, we might actually have something in common that we can share and help each other out. Thank you so much and have a great day.